I?
I did.
I did well until I fumbled the landing.
It's alright. Stuck the landing. It's alright. 8 from me.
A pair of Volkswagen Golfs at the front, albeit with the car that's meant to start second a bit out of position. He needs to engage reverse gear because he's currently hovering over the start-finish line. I don't think that's quite right. We'll have to see whether that stands or not. On the third row of the grid is the first of the BMWs. Can't quite see it in that shot, but it is the Tyler Motorsport 71 car of John Lynn. That car, or John Line I should say, I did get reminded of that accuracy, it's John Line. John Line is usually strong in the E36. It's one of the stronger cars in the category. Normally, of course, we've got those guest class entries at the front. Can John salvage an overall podium in the E36 BMW? It looks like an M3, but it's not one. It's just an E36 that has been through some modifications. 5-second board has been shown. One of the cars has jumped the start. It's Sterling in the Clio who's jumped the start somewhat, all out of position then as we get going, but going we get, and off they go with the 28 car leading the way. It's the Wolf Motorsport car that was a nose and sun ahead before they even got started that leads the way. There have been some body panel shifts further back in the order as everyone tries to find some room. Down goes there in the Renault Clio, a little less potent than the Audi TT. We'll see him in later. There you see the 28 car leading the way, then it's the 34. We believe that is going to be Alex Jones at the wheel of that car for the opening stint. I'm just peering down to see if I can spot Tony Gillam. Yes, indeed, he is on the pit wall. So Tony Gillam playing spectator for the first stint of this race. You see up to third place already. Rear wheel drive, always good off the line. And sure enough, Mr. Line himself, John Line, is up into third place in the early going in the E36. Just behind him is the Honeybone Clio, the 24 Apple Car Centre car of John Honeybone. It's usually shared, but he is running solo this weekend. Gaggle of cars heading towards Hamilton for the first time. Kieran and, well, looks like everyone's got through mostly cleanly. We saw a couple of body parts flying, but all the cars seem to still be moving, and that's what counts.
Yeah, not bad for 28 cars taking the start. That's not bad at all. But at the moment, though, it is the Motorsport number 28 VW Golf that's absolutely trying to sail away into the lead at this moment in time. A great start from them. As now we see the rest of the field making its way through the latter stages of this lap and making their way down in towards Brundle and Nelson in tandem. And that's the number 53 it is, Kevin Sterling, you're right, he's trying to make some moves and trying to get his way going, especially after that poor start from him.
Yeah, Sterling jumped the start, realised he'd jumped the start, and then, as is always the case when you realise you've jumped the start, you then get a terrible start as a result of it. The tale as old time continues to be written, and unfortunately, Kevin Sterling is going to have to work his way through the order. We've got a BMW trying to make its way up the ranks. That's the 77 car, the Red Plant Sales entry of Robert Gamble. That's a 3-litre straight 6 BMW, so it should be a bit stronger in a straight line than the Clios. Well, actually, they look almost equal to an extent as they run down the main straight for the first time. No question over the leader, though. It is the 28 car, and just looking at the pace on that first lap, I do wonder if it is Carlito Baracco at the wheel. Carlito, who has driven on the BTCC support package for a number of years, has taken, I believe, even overall race victories in the Ginetta GT4 Super Cup. He's a very good driver. Saw great things out of him in Turismo X at Anglesey earlier this year. I doth suspect it might be him at the wheel of that leading car, the number 28.
Yeah, very early stages in this race though. Oh, we got someone off in the background then, coming on towards the back straights. The JB Motorsport, James Butcher, the Honda Civic then, just taking a little bit of rallycross here. I didn't know we had that track there.
No, they did do some rallycross here many months ago, but not for a while. No one has told James Butcher that, though. He continues to forge his own path.
I have to say though, coming on towards Agostini, taking the grass lights, not particularly great, especially one of the heaviest braking side of the circuit, but I'll let him give me that one there.
Also, the grass here is particularly protected, as the circuit manager doesn't like it when you mess with the grass. So hopefully nothing too heinous has gone on there on the exit of Palmer on towards Agostini. There you see the number plates on that 36 car. That is the McKee Motorsport machine. That is a car that will be driven to and from circuit. Sam McKee taking the start. He is the man who will have the McKee's when the car is driven back home.
And here goes Darren Goes now trying to make his way through the order, trying to get past the 172 Tyler Motorsport. Alfie Hyde behind the wheel of that one, getting a position there. And yeah, Darren Goes a different beast, this Renault Clio, but he sure tamed it well.
Another factory-built race car, of course, a car from the Renault Clio Cup single make series, the Mark IV cars. And we no longer have the Renault Clio Cup in the UK, but this will operate over in Europe with the new Mark V Renault Clios. Just behind him is an example of a Mark II Clio. That's the number 172 of Hyde. The number 12, another Mark II Clio, albeit with some aero appendages. I don't know if that's Dunster or Kemp at the wheel for the first stint, but whoever it was getting a bit out of sorts going through the last corner. Murray's.
It was a bit of an argument going into Murray's actually, so we'll have to see how that gets resolved. But yeah, number 12 then dropping down a position as they now make their way up towards the hairpin of Wilson once again.
There you see some of the cars further back, the BMW Z3. The 90. Oh, car off there. That was the McKee Motorsport BMW just sliding out of shot. Let's hope that Sam McKee has kept the car straight and true and hasn't collided with anything. There's a lot of run-on down at the Wilson hairpin, but the 36 car went for a spin. Keep an eye on the back of shot and see if you spot an E36. Didn't spot it imminently, but I think it has carried on. I don't see a car off and down towards the hairpin on our CCTV cameras here in the commentary box. Do see a good scrap here between the 98 Clio and the 92 Integra. The 98 Clio, the Unique Racing Charlie Polk driven car, right overtaken straight back though by Dan Abbott in the Abbott Motorsport Integra. Dan having absolutely none of it.
Not at all, and this is the great style when it comes to these varied machines, because there's going to be strengths and weaknesses of each car at different points of the circuit. And Snetterton 300 certainly gives you a bit to talk about. There's a bit of dust kicked up there on the exit coming out of the that fast corner, but no harm, no foul as we make our way down towards the Bentley Straight.
And the car going straight on there, was that the Honeybone Clio? No, it was the Unique Racing Clio. That was the 89 car, I think that, of Pottinger that went straight on.
98 of Pottinger, that's the Unique Racing. Is it not?
No, 89 is Pottinger, 98
it's
is
because
Charlie Polk. We've got a car off on the main straight, on the Bentley straight I should say, and that car isn't just off, it's smoking with a plot. And you may recall the oil being swept off that particular Ford Fiesta a little earlier on, the LWD car of Gary Littlewood. Unfortunately, that thing seems to have expired in a cloud of its own coolant on the Bentley Straight, and that's never a welcome sight for the marshals or indeed the other drivers. In fact, that's the Class D Fiesta. I'm not quite sure whom that was ultimately, but one of them certainly is cooking.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, there is a great battle going on between the 172 Tyler Motorsport Renault Clio Alfie Hyde and the number 22 Mango's Racing Renault Clio Darren Goes. They are absolutely battling hammer and tong as they make their way in towards Wilson. Darren Goes goes a little bit deep with his carnage in the background there.
Charlie Polk spinning and everyone else trying to avoid him. I don't think the number 4 car managed to avoid him. I think Butcher in the Civic made contact there. James Butcher in his eponymous JV Motorsport Honda Civic, I think, just collected the spinning number 98 car of Charlie Polk, who now gets himself back underway, albeit with some damage. A few cars ending up with damage there. Dan Abbott also in the spin in the 92 Integra. There are a total of 4 cars involved in that moment there. That's hugely unfortunate to see. Thankfully, it seems that all cars have continued, although Dan Abbott peeling off camera down towards Palmer. So Dan Abbott, unfortunately, I think maybe a retirement from this one, but hopefully no cars at the imminent firing line and we don't have to go to safety car. Certainly, either Gary Jackson or Carlito Morocco. Not sure who's at the wheel. We'll be hoping they don't go into safety car conditions because the leader is 3.7 seconds clear right now. We watch Charlie Polk limping back through Agostini. That car certainly not going at full speed.
Yeah, lots of damage to the rear right quarter panel there of his Renault Clio, so he's just trying to limp that back to the pit lane and pretty much do a damage report, a sit rep if you like, and see what happens there. But meanwhile, in all that drama, Alfie Hyde managed to build just a little bit of a gap here to Darren Goes as they now make their way through the long right-hander of Coram before they have to size up Murray's down in towards the braking zone. As we see there, the number 44 Apple car centre, Jordan Honeybone, really goes full attack in towards Murray. That's not the first time he's popped the rears going in towards the right left-hander.
Absolutely not, no. It does happen in a front-wheel drive car in particular. But look at Sterling go, has closed in on Honeybone after that poor start we saw out of the Team Norfolk car, the number 53 car of Kevin Sterling. He's now closing in on the Apple Car Centre machine of Jordan Honeybone. Both cars are Mark IV Clio Cup machines, and they're behind the rather different, just slightly different, BMW E36. About 20 years and 20 years on the road in the case of that BMW, I suspect, between the two. Race leader continues to be the 28 car. Hasn't actually darted away in the fashion I was expecting after the first lap. I am just wondering if Carlito Morocco is awaiting the opportunity to get behind the wheel. I think actually it might well be Jordan Jackson at the wheel. Jordan is getting better session on session. At the moment he's doing a good job of holding off Alex Jones at the front of the pack.
Here we see John Lyne here. He's trying to hang on to third place from the 44 Jordan Honeybone as they now make their way in towards the right-hander of Rockies before they get the power back down up towards Williams. And then, well, Honeybone might be trying to size up on towards the Bentley straight. You see John Lyne trying to try and get away, but he's on full attack, that's for sure. These two absolutely getting the most out of their cars at the moment.
Yeah, I think the BMW has a little more legs in a straight line than the Clio. I think that would crack, as it were. All of these cars are in Class B, incidentally, so they're in the top class of the championship officially. The two Golfs at the head of the order, I remind you, are in guest class entries, therefore they're not a part of the championship. The 98 car, Charlie Polk, finally rolling back into pit lane. But that in-lap has been very, very long indeed, and that illustrates that car is certainly less than A1. Thankfully, they don't have another Track Day Championship race today, but the Track Day trophy is still to come, although I don't believe Charlie Polk is entered, so unfortunately, I think day done within the first 15 minutes of racing for the 98 car. Well, the leaders have already come across the line in 3.6 seconds, the gap between the 28 and 34. We're on to lap 6 of racing. It won't be long before cars start to dive in for their mandatory pit stops. You see their line going a little bit wide at turn 2, and Sterling kind of matching him there in the 53. Kevin Sterling just missing his braking opportunity. Jordan Honeybone by far the cleanest of the three through turn 2, but that's just one corner on a bigger lap. And across the lap, it seems as though for now, the Tyler Motorsport car of John Lyne has a slight edge.
He does, but coming in towards Agostini there, John Lyne getting a much better line this time there. He's been locking up in towards the braking zone of Agostini the last couple of laps, and it's allowed Jordan Honeybone to really close in on him throughout the middle sector, but this time he got the braking zone absolutely spot on. He's able to just keep that gap between himself and Honeybone, and he can just use that powerful engine underneath the bonnet to get himself away down the Bentley straight.
Yeah, and the BMW quite a nimble car too, so it shouldn't give away too much of the Clio anywhere. I was so fascinated, incidentally, during our interview with Robert Hollyman. One set of tyres for the entire season. I don't think many people attempt that, but certainly if you are cost-cutting, it is a way. I think we've had our first scheduled pit stop of the day, and that's from the 77 car. That is, of course, the Red Plant Sales Robert Gamble driven BMW 130. It just came out of the pits, I believe, within the pit stop window. So we are now at the point of the race where we may well see pit stops. Here come the top two cars then. You see there the second place car being driven at the moment by Alex Jones, the Team Hard prepared Volkswagen Golf. I believe George Jackson it is at the wheel of our leading 28 car. No question over who's in third because he is a soloist. That is John Line in third place. Jordan Honeybone just behind him in fourth. The gap, what is the gap? 1.7 seconds that time. And on that occasion, Honeybone was all of a few hundredths of a second slower than Line in the BMW, so they're not giving away much across the lap, but different strengths and weaknesses. Incident involving cars 12, 92 and 98, that was the tangle we saw down in turn 2, will be investigated after the race. Incidentally, the McKee BMW is still going. That car has recovered to 12th place now after its little spin earlier on. That's good to see for Sam McKee.
It is indeed. You could be a poet and you never even knew it. Well, there you go. Well done everybody. I was going to say actually, Jordan Honeybone, speaking to him as they were making their way out onto the circuit, he only landed from Poland yesterday. He originally entered alongside Ray Honeybone because if he didn't make it back, Jordan, then Ray would jump into the car. But Jordan did make it back in time, and well, he was just looking forward to getting out there, getting some racing in. He's got some racing now because he's got Line ahead of him, and that's a battle for a podium.
Yes, indeed. That's quite the adventure then for Jordan Honeybone. Goodness gracious me, I'm not good for anything after a flight. The next day I'm in bed for 14 hours.
Let alone driving a car this quickly, you know?
Exactly. Any test of my reactions on a Monday after a flight are greeted by, well, a sigh and probably something hitting me in the face. We're just within half an hour of this race completing. So we're into the final 30 minutes and the pit window is open as a result. So I retract my previous statement. The Gamble car didn't pit within the window. It's a 10-minute window within the middle of the race and he wasn't within it. So whatever was going on with that 77 BMW, it wasn't a scheduled stop. You see there the first of some of the cars further back, the skew width front end of the Honda. Number 4 car of Butcher has been butchered a little bit, hasn't it? James Butcher has been in the wars in this one. Just behind the yellow Fiesta is the McKee car, which we believe is driven by Sam McKee at the start of this race. He is all over the 57 LWD racing car of Gary Littlewood. In fact, is he through? They go through Gorham, tries to go up the inside, not quite there yet. Of course, I'm sure he is a little bit more cautious than some, given he drives the car home. However, thinking about how the car looked by the end of Anglesey, I might retract that statement. It was looking a little bit worse for wear after Anglesey. Here he comes along the centre straight then. Will he take a look to the inside? He does. Will it be successful? Let's wait and see. It will. Gets it done before they even get to the corner. Good move from Sam McKee and Ritchie's to move up to what is 11th overall.
Yeah, absolutely. They're recovering from their penalty that they had in qualifying for their mishap in the last race. So they've had to get themselves and climb themselves a little bit further up the board. I believe they were either inside the top 10, just outside of it, whatever's the case. They're recovering to roughly where they qualified now, and their race, in effect, will try and start from here and see how far they go up the order.
There you go. So we'll see what happens there. That was second in class as well, that move. By McKee, so McKee's up to second in Class C. One of the quicker cars within Class C. I imagine just falls barely below the 150 brake horsepower per tonne minimum, and is now pursuing the Honda Civic of the slightly wounded James Butcher, and McKee up the inside of Oggies and makes it look easy. That was very much by the book and very much textbook from McKee, who continues to press on. You can check it on the MOT Checker website, whatever it is, .gov.uk. That car is indeed MOT'd, or at least I hope it is, because he drives it to and from the circuit. Doesn't look as though he's got that much in a straight line though compared to the Honda. The Civic trying to get back around him and not quite able to. Sam McKee continues to press on. 2:13.945. The fastest lap of the race has just been set by Alex Jones. So So Jones getting quicker and quicker, and of course he's still got something of a secret weapon to come in the form of Tony Gillen, the ex-BTCC racer. But the same can be said for George Jansen, who's got Carlito Morocco waiting in the wings.
Yeah, as well as that, the JP Motorsport Honda Civic James Butcher with that, you'd call it a bruise on the left-hand side of his car. Nevertheless, he powers on and not willing to give up that position so easily to Sam McKee there, but McKee trying to break away. We've seen the Civics pretty good in a straight line as they now head their way up towards Riches for another time, and then Wilson will follow. Perhaps there might be a move maybe being carved out as they head up towards the head, but he might be a little bit too far back for that one, but certainly we've got a good battle on our hands.
Of course, the Butcher car is a Class B machine. McKee's BMW is Class C, and since that is a brake horsepower per tonne formula that determines the classes, one would expect the Class B car to be a bit quicker. Most places into the pits, and has been in the pits for a while, unfortunately, is the number 83 car. That's the BMW Compact, driven by Sean Frey at the wheel of that Class C BMW. He's been there for a while. I think that stop has far exceeded the anticipated length. The Ginetta is around, the 69 driven motorsport car being driven by John Dundee. This Dundee stuff, because he looks like he's not at all confident to get the car going. Is he just waiting for an opportune moment? There is no traffic on the horizon at Coram, so now would be the opportune moment. And there you go, now getting the rear-wheel drive Ginetta underway, but he's doing so with suspension damage. That car has either had a whack or had a failure, and I don't think that's going to get back to the pits under its own steam. There's some telltale signs of rubbing on the 69 car as well.
It's a shame, but there's definite suspension damage. You're right, he's not getting that back into the pit lane. And meanwhile then, one of the Mazdas, the number 11 Bora Motorsport, Reece Warwick, is into the pit lane now. That Ginetta parked on the left-hand side of the grass. It's quite close to the track. I think the drivers and teams will be keeping their eyes on that one.
Yes, we're going to have to watch closely, aren't we, for any intervention. Certainly will be covered by yellow flags at the moment. It is indeed covered by double-waved yellows for the time being, and I believe safety car boards are out, yes. So then the safety car is deployed with 24 minutes of this race and change left to go. And that has happened mid-pit window, which will benefit some and harm others.
Yes, absolutely, and of course with that pit window being open, I can imagine it's going to be a very, very busy pit lane in the next couple of minutes once drivers and teams have pretty much got the message across that the safety car is deployed, so we shall wait and see how that shakes up the order.
To be honest, I think for a majority of the field it doesn't make much difference. Not many drivers had already pitted at the time of the safety car coming out. We do, however, have some drivers who, because they haven't crossed the start-finish line or indeed gone past the pit entry yet, are diving into the pits at the first opportunity. Among them, many of the Fiestas, also that number 12 AMS racing car, Jack Wheeler and Nick Watling, Chris Tunster and Jack Kemp in the number 12 Pro-Am racing car, the Renault Clio, they are in. Also in there, Ronan Quinn's number 26 Fiesta, jogging away from the scene of the crime. Number 69 car of John Dundee going no further, at least with him at the wheel.
What's going to be interesting is when you come to these sorts of competitive and this competition where you've got drivers that are sharing the car, well, how do they share the car? Do they try and do equal stints? Is it a case of one stint gets sacrificed if there's an early safety car? The thing is, though, this safety car is pretty much going to split this race in twain, so both drivers are going to get the equal stint, so I'm expecting it to be a much busier pit lane as well, with both drivers being happy if they're sharing the car, because they'll both have an equal stint.
Yeah, quite possibly. Usually in, say, Pro-Am GT racing, you'll see the AM do as little of the racing as possible to try and get themselves a trophy at the end of the day. But I think it's more inclined at a club level where everyone's kind of paying the same money and trying to do the same thing. I think that everyone tries to split it down the middle. That said, I was somewhat surprised that we didn't see either Gary Jackson or Alex Jones in to hand over to their, I don't know about hired guns, but certainly their de facto pro drivers, Carlito Morocco and Tony Gillen. But now they all come in. You see number 12 car currently in being serviced, but everybody else pretty much is in. The safety car is running there pretty much alone because all the other cars from the sharp end of the order have pitted.
Yeah, it's always a challenge for the safety car driver to pick up the race leader, but there will just be a sort of train forming behind the safety car there. The 77 Red Plant salesman Robert Gamble in the BMW i30i.
Second stop for that car, of course, came in the 130i BMW 3-litre 1 Series, first generation. F82, if I remember correctly. I could be horribly wrong. Answers on a postcard. Just behind that, or just ahead of that in the pit lane, is the Tony Gillam car. The ex-BTC racer Tony Gillam is just ahead of the 1 Series in the pit lane. And that driver change is ongoing at the moment. The 34 car, though, will be one to watch as we go back to green flag conditions. 77, unfortunately, is some way down the order. There you see the remnants of the field that have actually not pitted yet. I think that leaves the leading car, potentially, as that little BMW Z3 of coupes and convertible racing. Jamie Jeffrey, I think, might be our leader at the moment, possibly going for prize. Unless he's that down, I'm not entirely sure. It must be said. In fact, yes, that car, I think, has already pitted in this one. So it's all going to come out in the wash eventually. But certainly for now, everyone who's anyone is in the pit lane.
Absolutely. And there's Jordan Honeybone then into the pits, of course, as not only is it a very busy pit lane, but you'll have cars and drivers leaving at roughly similar times, and in the pit lane there has been a change of position.
Yes, just caught the exits of both the goals on that shot just now, and Tony Gillam has rejoined just ahead of Carlito Marocco. You saw that Darren Goes rejoining the race as well. There's a lot of shuffling throughout the order, you'll be unsurprised to hear. And, well, we have seen some shifting there among the Clios as well.
Yes, haven't we just, as there you can see the recovery of the Ginetta gets underway with that rear suspension. It can't go anywhere, so it does need the flatbed truck to attempt to wheel it off the circuit at least carry it away.
Yes, well, it won't be as bad as an Enduro car race I witnessed. I think you might have been there as well, actually, Kieran, when they tried to winch the car up and the engine fell out of the KA. They wanted to put it on the flatbed and the engine dropped out as they were winching it up into the air on the crane, which was, safe to say, less than ideal. Of course, the Enduro car, the Enduro KA, whatever you want to call it, they'll be back out tomorrow here at Snett. Always a traditional part of the calendar, but Honey have shrunk the race. It's gone from 12 hours to 9 hours this year, with a 24-hour race that they had at Anglesey last month. I suppose they've had more than enough track time this summer so far.
Absolutely, but of course they've got their qualifying later on this evening, so that'll be to shuffle up the order, see where they all go, and then of course, as you say, it's their 9-hour race tomorrow, so looking forward to seeing how that all shapes up. Great racing there, and you know, qualifying for a long endurance race, I'm sure you know, Adam, that is never the full story. It's less than a quarter of the story, because 9 hours is a long time.
It's the forward.
Yes.
It's not even a quarter of the story, I won't give it that. Not a chance. Although it is often in Enduro car racing, you often have the likes of Adam Blair up there at the sharp end for IP racing. Of course, he's here today. We've already seen him in his Audi TT for Darkside Developments. IP Racing will be fielding him a little bit later. Our erstwhile race leader, with all of those pit stops going on, was the 88 of Russell Sargent. And well, he's now in, and of course will immediately lose the race lead to Tony Gillam. And Gillam is going to have a rear wing, or a wing mirror, I should say, full of Carlito Marocco when we go back to racing conditions. Those two are line astern in the safety car queue now, 0.6 of a second apart, not that it matters in a safety car queue. We're going to get about 15 minutes of racing, maybe a bit less, once the flatbed has cleared the scene of the crime for the 69 car. And I think that's going to make for some very compelling action between two drivers with decorated pasts.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to seeing, once we get back onto green flag racing, seeing how that battle develops. And yeah, we've had a couple of track limit warnings ratings as well. The most recent one has gone out to the number 12 Pro-Am Racing, the shared car of Chris Dunster and Jack Kemp. Of course, they're always watching those track limits. They are always watching.
Oh yes, well they're doing more than watching, they're photographing of course. There are pressure pads here at Snetterton, and it means that there is no longer an argument to be made if you're a racing driver, because they literally have you on tape. They have you with the camera, and the camera don't lie. If you drive over the pressure pad just beyond the track limits, it will instantly take a photo of your car, and race control will present that to you if you do it too many times and say, well, here's what you did. Try and explain that one, my friend.
Yeah, it's always tough to debate against photographic evidence,
yes.
But, it's worth a try, but you won't get very far.
Yes, well, if court dramas have taught me one thing, it's that photographic evidence is a lot better than witness testimony. And even though the marshals are very sharp and can be trusted at all times when it comes to track limits, having the photo to go along with their testimony is always very useful for those that make the decisions in race control. Safety car will be in this lap. Of course, it's not the leaders at the sharp end of the safety car queue as we see Sargent head back out onto the circuit. I don't think he's going to catch up to the back of the queue here, so that extra lap, that glory hunting leading of a lap for the 88 car, I think may come back to haunt them.
Do you know what, Adam? I would have done exactly the same. He's led a lap of this race. You can never take that away from him.
I had a feeling you were going to say those exact words, yeah.
Am I really that predictable?
Yep.
Did you predict that as well?
Yep. The safety car will be in this lap. We need to keep an eye out for the two Volkswagen Golfs. The first of which I'm just trying to pick out in the safety car queue at the moment, just going through Nelson now. So it's about 12 to 15 cars back, the top two. As we go back to green flag conditions, keep an eye on the 34 car, keep an eye on the 28 car, the multicoloured shambles of a Team Hard livery this weekend, and the black and white Volkswagen Golf. Of course, they're both Volkswagen Golf machines, and they will both be fighting for the lead. You see them just behind the MX-5 in the back of shot there as they trundle through Coram. It's going to be Tony Gillam that leads the way. We've got lots of lap traffic ahead. The car that will strictly lead them away as some of them are trying to go 2 by 2. No. That is Sean Frey that will lead them on, but Sean Frey is not our race leader. It is Tony Gillam as the green flag waves. No one is allowed to overtake until they've gone past the start-finish line, and that means that the field is condensed massively as they get underway. Look to the back of shot for Tony Gillam in the Golf. You can just see him peering through some of the traffic, and Carlito Morocco up the inside. Carlito Morocco has gone through. If we just hold the shot there, we can see Carlito Morocco through into the race lead at Ritchie's. He got it done immediately.
Absolutely. Oh, big fishtail there from Sean Frey as he tries to desperately wrangle control of his car, and that's allowed Jamie Jeffrey in the 99 to take that position away. It's all going to happen there in this restart. The field is very much shuffled, and that's going to allow Morocco as well to try and get his way through the order. We'll be able to see them now as they head their way down towards Agostini.
Yeah, you can just see Carlito Morocco trying to pick his way through. We've got cars that are a lap down at the front of the safety car queue, but they're not the ones that matter. There is Carlito Morocco in the grey 28, and then Tony Gillam in the multicoloured 34. Those are our top two cars post pit stops. Third place, and of course critically leading the non-guest cars in this Track Day Championship race is the 71 car. That is John Line in the Tyler Motorsport BMW E36. But look at the 28 car, look at Carlito Morocco picking his way through the order, picking his way through the lap traffic, I should say. He is now a race leader. There's Tony Gillam in second place behind him. The two goals have already gotten away from John Line once more. Question is Tony Gillam going to be able to match Morocco? Certainly, they're pretty evenly matched in a straight line. You see them both heading down towards Brundle and Nelson now. Two Volkswagen Golfs. I believe the Morocco car is an authentic Mark 6 Golf, whereas you've got kind of a blend of Mark 6 and Mark 5 styling going on the Tony Gillam car. So two Golfs of slightly different vintages, but two very well prepared cars, scrapping it out for the top two, and there is the leader among the non-guest cars, the driver that will score maximum points at the moment, that 71 BMW we just saw, John Line.
Yeah, Good restart from him, trying to pick his way through the field and still trying to make sure he gets the job done out there. But yeah, you see Gillam and Morocco going to have themselves a nice little battle as they make their way down the centre straight. A bit of a gap between them there, and nearly a second of a gap between them formed on that lap alone. But there was a bit of traffic involved as well as the rest of the field hurtled their way down towards Rich's.
Yeah, all running down towards Richie's Bend then, as you rightly say, and there's John Line in amongst the traffic. He got a nice Clio ding-dong scrap for 4th place as well, as Sterling made up 2 places on that first lap back to racing action. Kevin Sterling from 6th to 4th in 1 lap, as John Line muscles his way through some of the traffic there on screen. But big nod then to the 53 car, to Team Norfolk's Kevin Sterling, up from 6th to 4th. In that first lap, he's now fighting off Jordan Honeybone, as you can see in the back of shot.
Yeah, race control just confirmed a 1 lap penalty for car 81 for Pug Sport Racing for a short pit stop.
A 1 lapper, that is a big penalty. I think someone had a 128 second penalty in ADAC GT4 Germany at Red Bull Ring, which is fairly lengthy. And in fact, a 1 lap penalty is even stronger in reality. So they really did do a short stop. That must have been an in now and no reprieve.
Yeah, well, that's it. The rules about the pit stops are draconian, but they will be enforced greatly. Even if you're a tenth of a second under the minimum pit stop time, you will be punished by that lap. You will be punished. There's no going against it. There was the 77 there, Red Plant Sales Robert Gamble BMW i30 trying to make its way through the field. Then a couple of lockups going on for the BMW there.
Yeah, the first generation BMW 130 that is just behind, or just ahead of, I should say, on the road. John Line in the 36 BM. Of course, they're a lap apart in terms of the actual classification, because the leading cars, the safety car Q, weren't our leaders in the race.
I'm not going to tell them that if you don't.
Okay, well, yeah, they are fighting for it, nonetheless, aren't they? Well, you can blame them.
No, you can't blame them. You'll see a car in front of you, of course you're going to battle there. That's Honeybone trying to go up the inside, then in towards the final corner. He's got the track position at least, and tries to power his way through, meanwhile almost going 3 wide behind him.
So that was Ian Sterling losing the 4th place that he so gallantly earned at the start of the race. The 89 car has received a 5-second penalty for track limits. Oh dear, Mr. Pottinger. That's Adrian Pottinger in the Unique Racing Clio, and he is running down in 7th place at the moment. So that 5-second penalty will knock him further down the pack by the end of the race. Clio Warfare then for 4th place overall and 2nd among the Class B cars. Jordan Honeybone back past Sterling. Let's see if Kevin has an answer in the 53.
Let's see if he does. I mean, we haven't got long left now, just over 8.5 minutes left of this race to run, and it's a free-for-all at the moment, trying to get your space out on track and try and figure out who you're actually battling, who is going to be full position. That's the toughest part of this race.
It really is, yeah. Wrecked myself on the Volkswagen Golf from Wolf Motorsport, George Jackson, Carlito Moretti. It's actually a Mark 7 Golf, which is the just gone model. They just announced, or they just released the Mark 8 a couple of years ago. It's the Mark 7, a very recent car, slightly newer machinery then for George Jackson and Carlito Moretti, and Moretti is using it to his advantage at the front of the order. He's built a gap of 3.6 seconds and growing over Tony Gillam as we're into the final 8 minutes of the race. Side-by-side action between the 172 car and the 12. They're a lap apart, so they have no reason to fight each other except pride, and pride is sometimes the strongest driver of all. You see there that Pottinger trying to make up a position there on Hyde as well, and it looks like that might have been done as Sterling and Honeybone continue to scrap 4th overall and 2nd within the Track Day Championship honours proper, lest we forget the 2 Volkswagen Golfs at the front of the order. Our guest class entries do not count for points for the prizes really in this one.
Yeah, Honeybone doing well to make sure he hangs on at the moment against Sterling. Meanwhile, Morocco then fastest lap of the race, 2 minutes 9.577 is our new fastest lap of the race, as Honeybone here tries to put the hammer down and try and build the gap between himself and that number 53 of Kevin Sterling.
Great to see scrapping all throughout the top 10 at the moment, and the 172 car still under pressure. We see them in the back of shot now. The 172 about to get overtaken there. Looks like Hyde may have to. No, Albie Hyde does not give way in the slightest to Adrian Pottinger. So Albie Hyde continues to make his little Clio 172 wide. Also cleared 172 and 182, the two hot hatches of the Mark II Clio generation. Both very popular cars, both for road and track. Don't see many of the Clio Cup cars out these days, the Mark IIs. They seem to have disappeared off France, I think, by and large. There's quite a lot of them out there. That car that you see on your screen is another one that's road registered. I don't know whether or not it's driving home tonight, but certainly it's in the midst of battle, isn't it? The 172 car holding off Adrian Pottinger for the time being. Both cars are within Class B as well. Incidentally, the leader of Class C right now is the number 22 car, Darren Goes, in another Clio. Now that car is in Class C, so I don't know whether he's got less power, whether it's not an actual Clio Cup car, I'm not sure. But Darren Goes down there in Class C and leading that class from 8th overall at the moment, just ahead of the McKee Dowsett BMW, which is of course now being driven by Rob Dowsett. We could see some fireworks for the Class C lead in 8th overall as well.
Well, we definitely could, and with only 5.5 minutes left on the clock, it's sure going to be fantastic to see how it all unfolds. And meanwhile, there is the number 28, Carlito Baracco, making his way now on towards the centre straight to start another lap. Just over 5 minutes left on the clock to run. And it's a healthy 7-second gap he's got between himself and the number 34 of Gillen.
And just to shout out Andrew Lyons, one of the marshals here at Snetterton, he sent me a message earlier on to confirm that they're not using the gates down on the approach to Agostini to allow the cars back into the paddock, so they will be running round to pit entry for the end of each race. Unfortunately, we don't quite have the numbers to run the gate down there at the back of the paddock today. Thank you to Andrew for the top tip there from the marshal posts. And there you see John Line, currently 3rd overall, some 25 seconds back from our race leader Carlito Baracco. But it's of little concern to him because he's leading the race in theory, as he is a Class B runner. He's not a guest class car. He will be scoring maximum points off this one. 2 cars ahead of him are effectively invisible, and he will be well aware of that. He just needs to keep Honeybone at bay. And Honeybone, I think, now that he seemingly has just about put a bit of a gap between himself and Kevin Sterling, Honeybone may be trying to close in here on Line. However, I think John Line will have his work cut out for him, as the BMW 1 Series slowed there to allow some of the other cars by. Of course, even though that 1 Series driven by Robert Gamble is fairly potent, qualified in the first few rows of the grid, it has had 2 pit stops and is a lap down as a result of that. Not quite sure why it came in first time, whether it was a mistake on the part of the crew as to whether the pit window opened, or whether it was a mechanical malady of some description. But 77 car keeps being hustled, albeit a lap down. 3 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Means that this should be the start of the penultimate lap of the race for Carlito Baracco, who continues to hustle the Wolf Motorsport Volkswagen Golf Mark 7. Of course, I thought that car was a diesel earlier. It definitely isn't. It is a GTI. But the Mark 7 pressing on. Came out of the factory at 296 brake horsepower. I don't know whether it's got any more these days, but certainly Carlito Baracco using every ounce of power available at this stage of the race. This will be his penultimate lap of racing. 12.3 seconds clear now of Tony Gillen. Carlito Baracco is firmly a very, very quick professional racing driver. Tony Gillen had some good form in his day, the BTCC and other categories, but of course he's not a regular racer these days. Far too busy running the day-to-day operations for Team Hard. I think it's a bit of a busman's holiday whenever Tony's at the wheel these days. stopped down at out of Palmer. Got another car into the pits. That's the little Ford Fiesta of Ronan Quinn, unfortunately. We mentioned that perhaps Jordan Honeybone had left it a bit late to be challenging John Line. But suddenly, Jordan Honeybone is all over the back of him, so this is a battle for third overall. But realistically, in terms of the actual championship, in terms of the cars that will score points today, this is the lead, because these two cars are both in Class B, both of the Volkswagens ahead are effectively non-championship entries. And so that means that John Line is going to come under significant threat here by the looks of it from Jordan Honeybone. Here's our on-the-track race leader, Carlito Morocco, out of the final corner in the Wolf Volkswagen. We'll cross the line now to begin what should be the final lap of the race. I believe he is being shown the last lap board, so that confirms that. There you go, the 28 car through Ritchie's for the final time. You can see that it is on the edge with Carlito at the wheel. He's pressing on. The only driver out there who's got below the 2:10 barrier. There's Tony Gillam in the older Mark V Golf. Kicking up the dirt a little bit there as Tony is clearly pushing off. Great to see Tony back at the wheel of a race car. John Line has crossed the line in third place with a fairly comfortable advantage over Jordan Honeybone. Gap was out to 0.8 of a second, but that Clio is strong in the middle sector, so perhaps Honeybone can challenge on this final lap. We continue to watch Tony Gillam there in second place. And peeling off the circuit there is one of the other Renault Clios. Is that the 172 car potentially? It may well have been Alfie. No, it wouldn't have been Alfie Hyde in the 172. He has gone missing though. In fact, I think Alfie Hyde is the car that has unfortunately come to a stop between Palmer and Agostini, but we've lost another Clio on the main straight there, as you saw. Didn't quite catch the number on that one. But nonetheless, the 28 car just a few corners away from victory. Clock has hit 0. And this will be the final lap for the Volkswagen Golf duo from Wolf Motorsports. George Jackson, who started the race, handed over, of course, to Carlito Morocco, and it will be Morocco that takes the flag and the win for Wolf Motorsport. There's the flag, and Morocco does it for Wolf Motorsport. Great win for them. Comfortably built the advantage over this man, Tony Gillam, in the latter phase of the race. Powers across the line for second, and let's take a look at that battle for third if we possibly can, because that's the important one for the Track Day Championship proper. They're coming through Coram now, and John Line, I think, may have just done enough, because as they come through the final corner, Honeybone is pressuring, but John Line is still there ahead. Can Jordan Honeybone get a good run onto the centre straight? He can. It's going to be a drag race on the line. It's Clio versus BMW. Who's going to have a nose ahead? Who's going to score the maximum points in the Track Day Championship? It's going to be Line. Line just about by half a tenth. Oh, and his wheel goes right to the end. Oh my goodness. Well, if I hadn't seen it on the pictures, I wouldn't believe it. But as soon as he crossed the line, I think that might have been a toe link on the front left suspension. John Line's wheel just bent inward. Well, he took third place with what was apparently an ailing car, because just a couple of 100 metres after the line, John Line ended up pulled over. Well, this has been a dramatic race for the Track Day Championship, has it not? See the 11 car just coming through the final corner, but to reiterate, John Line did cross the line in third place, ahead of Jordan Honeybone in fourth. Kevin Sterling rounded out the overall top 5. Of course, those 3 are effectively the podium if you discount the guest drivers, but we won't be doing that. We want to hear from Carlito Moracco and Tony Gillam if at all possible. Hint, hint to my colleague Kieran, who's obviously run down there to try and grab some interviews. But yes, what a dramatic end to the race. Can tell you now, Kieran down there, we're not going to get John Line because he's parked up down at Ritchie's Bend after a failure just a couple of 100 metres after the flag. I've never seen anything quite like that. Even though that car is now damaged, I would suggest that's one of the most fortuitous component failures that I've ever seen in motorsport. If that had happened a couple of 100 metres earlier, he wouldn't have had a podium today. He wouldn't have scored maximum points in the Track Day Championship today. Amazing stuff from John Line. Jordan Honeybone will be seething, although I think ultimately still satisfied with his day's work. So Carlito Moracco and George Jackson